Hello, it is November 3rd. Welcome to episode 2 of the Chambana Proud podcast. I am Carly with the Champaign County EDC.
And I am Terri with Visit Champaign County. Good morning, Carly.
Good morning. How are you, Terri?
I'm doing great. How was your weekend?
Mine was really nice. I kicked things off on Friday night by attending the Illini men's basketball game, which was fun to be back in State Farm Center with the crowd. And and we won. That always helps.
Yes, I'm so excited for this season. It's
Yeah.
going to be great. I can't wait for them to hang the Big Ten championship banner and to see all the new players out there. It's just going to be a really fun season.
Yeah, it was sort of fun seeing a lot of new folks and learning about them and talking and trying to get all the information and stuff. So
it's always the hardest part of the season is getting to know the new players. So I have to really study up on it. But I have people in my office that talk about it nonstop, so that will really
that
help.
helps. Yes.
Yeah.
How was your weekend?
It was great. We went camping this weekend at Middle Fork.
You purposely chose to be outside all weekend?
I was outside all weekend. Yes, we went to Middle Fork River Forest Preserve, which is in the northeast quadrant of Champaign County, and it is an international dark sky park. So that first night that we were out there, it was clear skies, and so we just kind of laid there and looked up at the sky, saw lots of shooting stars, and it was beautiful. The night sky was amazing. The foliage out there was beautiful. So
you hit perfect weather.
We really got lucky. So it was just a gorgeous day, a gorgeous weekend all around, and lots of campfires, lots of, s'mores, lots of local beer. So a great time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I saw your pictures that you posted, and they looked
Yes.
amazing, even for the non-outdoor enthusiasts.
Did it make you want to go outside, Carly?
I liked the sky.
You like the sky?
Yeah.
You would go stargazing?
Yes.
Okay,
I
but you
think
wouldn't
so.
camp.
Probably not.
We had friends that joined us, and they decided to sleep in their car. Would you do that?
Yes.
You would?
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
So you might get me out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're going to make this
Yes.
happen.
And what is the fun fact about, you always talk about this, the dark sky park?
It's the only dark sky park in the state of Illinois. So it's pretty exciting. They got certified in 2019, and it's because they did a lot of changes within the forest preserve to reduce light pollution in the park and also in the surrounding area. And so it really is noticeable. I mean, the stars were just incredible. It was very different from what you see in town.
And for all those who are interested, do you have to go online and register, or can you just show up and camp?
No, you do have to reserve your spot in advance. We actually closed out the season. So it's closed now from November 1st until April, I believe, and then it reopens. But I highly recommend people check it out if that's something that they want to do. A lot of fun. Carly,
Cool.
You can camp in your car. It's fine.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to make it
Set
happen.
it for 2023. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So before we dive in, I did want to give a nice little shout out to our friend Austin, who helped us get readjusted on some of our sound and audio and helped us with the podcast technical stuff. So thanks to
Yes.
Austin for helping us.
He was so wonderful.
He was
And
great.
Hopefully we're sounding a lot better to everybody today. I thought we sounded pretty good, but Austin was like, I think we need to work on that a little bit.
Yes.
So,
In the most friendly way possible.
yes, he was fantastic. So thank you, Austin. We really appreciate your help.
Yes, and we're going to dive in. All right, so we have a trivia every episode. We read one the last episode. We're going to answer it now. So last episode's question was, the University of Illinois became a pioneer in accessibility when it did what? And our answers, multiple choice options were: design the famous blue and white accessibility signs depicting a person in a wheelchair, became the first college in the U.S. to establish a collegiate wheelchair basketball team, and the last option was invented the first ever motorized wheelchair. So Terri, what is the answer?
The answer is we became the first college in the U.S. to establish a collegiate wheelchair basketball team. And so here's just some fun facts about that. So wheelchair basketball helped veterans become more physically active and improve in coordination skills during World War II. This began in the United States at the University of Illinois. Dr. Timothy Nugent founded the National Wheelchair Basketball Association in 1949 and served as commissioner for the first 25 years. So our men's and women's teams start their season actually next weekend in Chicago. They'll be home in February at the ARC, the Activities Recreation Center there on campus. So when they're in town, make sure to check them out. It's really impressive to watch them play.
Absolutely. All right, and if you noticed at the beginning of the episode, we did have some new music to introduce us. So Terri, I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about this.
Yes. So I'm really excited. When we were thinking about having music in this, I think only one person came to mind to help put this together.
Because
And
it had to be local,
it had to be
obviously.
local, yes. So I don't think there's anybody more local than Ryan Groff. So, Ryan, we're really excited to have you here with us this morning. We were hoping you could tell us a little bit about yourself, some of the music that you do, your studio, your bands. Just give us a nice introduction.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for asking me both to create this theme music and to be on the podcast here this morning. I listened to the first episode and loved it and didn't notice any of the audio things that Austin must have. So I'm applauding him for his audio precision because I thought it was just great. So I own Perennial Sound Studio in Champaign, and it actually will celebrate its 10-year anniversary
Wow,
on
that's
December
amazing.
2nd, which is my birthday. I opened on my birthday in 2012, just after our son was born. So hitting 10 years of being a private music instructor and doing recording sessions and being a producer and an audio engineer. And the studio has just grown and grown and grown, right? I was teaching out of our dining room for the first 5 or 6 years, working as a barista downtown. And then as it grew, simultaneously, my wife Jody and I were like, are we ready to have a baby? Is it time to have a baby? I think it is. Can't really be teaching in our dining room when we have a baby. So let's spend the next 9 months figuring out what to do. So long story short, we got a loan, got the plans together. I found a builder. We drew up the plans. We built it over the course of 13 months. Opened it in 2012, and now I teach full time. I teach about 55 lessons a week. So
Wow.
of all ages, all skill levels, most instruments, except band and orchestra.
Yeah. You had
Yeah.
my son for a little while.
I did. I got to work with your son.
Yeah.
Yes, totally. Help him get ready for the big next step.
Yeah, yeah, he adored you. So we're
He's a
so
great-
excited to
thank
have
you.
you. And you're also in a couple bands.
I am. My long-term band is called Elsinore. We've been around forever and ever. And currently, because of the pandemic, the drummer James Treichler and I are strictly studio musicians making a bunch of cool songs for this huge video game that comes out
Oh.
via Bethesda and ZeniMax, which is a huge video game company out of the Baltimore and DC area. Their Tokyo studio is making this music-based game, and our good friend Chris Parker, who lives here, thought of us. He's a music supervisor that freelances with them, and he was like, "Guys, I have a project for you. Would you like to make some songs for this video game? I think it could be kind of a big deal." And we're like, "That sounds great." It went so well that they hired us to make 10 more songs in 4 months because they needed additional or Twitch content for
Wow.
the streaming platform. So
That is a
also-
big deal.
like out of nowhere, it just came out of nowhere. So we are infinitely indebted to our good friend Chris Parker, who happens to live here, formerly of the Ventura, LA area, and has been a music supervisor for 25 years. Does huge work with a lot of companies, but specifically this company, which also just got bought by Microsoft. So they just leveled up in the gaming world, which is huge. So that's kind of where Elsinore has been since we put out our record right before COVID. But I also formed a new band called Modern Drugs, and we have been playing and writing and recording. We're actually out at Earth Analog Studio in Tolono, which is owned by Matt Talbot, who owns Loose Cobra and is in the band Hum, who's been around forever, and did like a documentary style behind the scenes music video while we recorded the song. So we're keeping super busy, doing great things. Played Friday Night Live, I've played the Rose Bowl multiple times, and we're just keeping busy. Everyone needed it in the pandemic, and now, thankfully, all 5 of us love it so much that we rehearse 2 or 3 nights a week, which is kind of crazy for adults, some of us with kids.
And here you are so busy with all this stuff. And then here come Carly and I with our little podcast. And we're like,
Yes.
will you make us some music?
Oh my gosh.
And
yeah.
you jumped at it.
Totally.
So
Right.
you
I
were
wouldn't have said no.
You were
Yeah.
so excited when we met and talked about it. You and I had coffee, and we talked about kind of what our goals were with the podcast, what we were hoping to talk about. And you sat there and you're like, I can already hear something in my
Yeah.
head. So
Yeah.
maybe you can tell us a little bit about that process and like how your brain works, because it's so
Yeah.
different from kind of what
Us.
we do.
Yeah, right. And what I figured out over time, especially being in a band with someone like Mallory Simons, who she and her husband Dylan, they own Before Brand, which is a local freelance marketing agency, branding agency. When I talk with her about song ideas, she's like, "Man, that's like when I see a design for a poster or a website, or when Dylan sees like animation, like it does just come. It just sparks and you just have it." So I know that I'm like most other songwriters where something just comes. If you're talking to somebody and you're both excited about it, and it's like, and the goal is, oh, music has to come from this situation right here. it does feel like I just like instinctively flip on a switch and my brain is thinking like, okay, if I know what this podcast is about, I know that the vibe is good. We're celebrating our amazing community, which I love and have been a part of since 2005. I heard the soundtrack, and what's great too as well is that I thought about how this might be pushing me toward like farming myself out as a podcast themer. I know when I was in music school, I talked a lot about wanting to like compose for movies, do scores for movies or shorts or something. So to me, this is a step in that direction. In my already busy musical stable of things that I'm working on. It was easy. I just had to kind of let the idea come and then step away for a couple of days and then come back. And I don't know that if you noticed, because it's a thing that's just in my brain, but the keyboard is saying Chambana proud. Like that's what the keyboard is saying in it. Those are the lyrics that are behind that keyboard. I'm like, it has to say da 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 da. Like it has to say Chambana proud over and over.
I love that.
Yeah.
I
And
do too. When Terry and I got the demo, we were in here listening, and
yes,
we were
and
bouncing
Carly
our
was like
heads.
bopping
Yeah.
back and forth.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
And it just, to me, it just was so energetic and happy, kind of like you said, that positivity. And that's what we're hoping to do with this. And so I really think you kind of nailed what we were hoping to
Thank you.
achieve. So
I listened to episode 1 and I knew right away. I was like, it has to be major and it has to like be sparkly and it has to like pump and pulse like the heartbeat. Like it has to have those elements.
yes.
So I was so glad that you guys were like, no, this is it. This is totally it, Ryan. You got it.
You
So
nailed it. Yes.
it felt good. It
we
felt
were
good.
very excited. So
Good. Thank
we're
you.
definitely going to be playing that every time we do an episode, plus some little snippets that we have. And so thank you so much for doing that.
Thank
and
you.
kind of one of the last things we wanted to ask you, because we do like to talk about this community and what it's like to be here. So you are a successful musician in this community. How has Champaign-Urbana treated you, and why do you call this place home?
I think that's an easy and long answer for me. I think, right? Two specific people got me here in the first place. Larry Gates, who goes under the name Curb Service, used to be in a band called Lorenzo Getz, now works at Volition, and Mike Ingram, the legendary centerpiece of the Champaign-Urbana everything crowd. They met me like probably 2000 at Canopy Club at this like Midwest musical showcase. Actually, Larry did. His band and my band at the time met. We became friends. We started sharing shows. I was at EIU at the time, working at the beginning of my music degree. He quickly introduced me to Mike. We were swapping shows, getting each other shows in our music scenes. And then he's like, you guys really should just move up here. Whenever you're graduating, whenever you're done, you should really move to Champaign. Whether it is your lily pad before you go somewhere else, you have to give it a chance. Like, it's great. So I continue to thank them every time I see them. Like, again, man, I know it's been 20 years since you told me this, but so they really plugged me in at the beginning.
I worked with Larry Gates at that time.
You did.
We worked at AOCS together.
Oh my
Larry was in the mailroom.
Oh my gosh.
He was always like
yes.
burning me CDs of music. It's so
Totally.
funny to
Totally.
think that like he was doing that while
Oh, that
he
makes
was
me
working
so
with you at
happy.
that time.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
I love it.
Right. So then, so I graduated from Eastern with my music degree, and knew that I needed to come here, and told my Elsinore bandmates, hey, I know we have this new band, because it was a year old at the time. Champaign-Urbana feels like where we should go. And they were like, well, you should move there. We'll follow. We'll see what happens. We were immediately plugged into the music scene. Got to play the Great Cover Up right away. That locked me into the scene. I'm
we
like,
love
oh
the
my
Great
gosh,
Cover Up.
right? Yeah, played the Cover Up and did David Bowie, and it went so well. We started getting a bigger crowd. The music scene really welcomed us in a big way. I worked at Aroma Cafe at the time when it was owned by Mike and Lizette Wells. They were like, hey, you can play here anytime you want. You can be a barista. Like, we'll help you kind of get settled in. Working downtown was what helped me kind of cast my net wide, so I could know more people. I got to know people in the music scene, people just around who I could say, hey, my band's playing at Cowboy Monkey tomorrow night. So a lot of that, a lot of like grassroots networking and just meeting new people, and with, at the time, High Dive and Cowboy Monkey really holding down the downtown music scene. That was a huge pull and a huge magnet to keep us here. So now watching the scene grow, watching venues come and go, or just change completely, it still feels like the place to be. As Elsinore toured in 2009 and 10, like nationally, every time we would come home, it's like, it's so easy to live here and come back here. like, sure, Portland and Austin and LA and New York, like, they are great. And it felt weird to be rolling up in our 15-passenger van and doing the dream thing. And then loving going back to Champaign-Urbana. Like,
Yeah.
and people would say, oh, I've heard of Champaign-Urbana. Like, people in these cool cities talking about, like, oh, yeah, a lot of bands come from there, right? I'm like, yeah, there have been, and we're the new one, you know?
Yep.
So overall, I think that between being a musician and then now as a longtime studio owner and a local, music educator, as a musician, as an artist, trying to just do what I want to do, I have felt welcomed and loved and supported. I'm able to build this small business that I have, and it's my passion, and it's me getting to set my own hours and do what I want, and also all along the way, a constant bit of me proving to my amazingly supportive wife Jody, like, see, like some husbands can play music and they really mean it, because she's always like, it was always, oh, my boyfriend's in a band, and people would be like, oh, really, and she's like, it was always great to be like, no, like a band that makes albums and tours and like plays, and he teaches, and now he has a studio. So that's also been great. That's been my little nudge where she's like, I'm going to keep you grounded, and I'm going to make sure that you're doing it the way that we have talked about doing it in our business plan. And I thank her for that, because the artist brain strays, the artist brain wanders often, and she's like, I will help you keep on that path that we have decided is your path. So that's great.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing all that, Ryan.
Yeah. Thank you.
So if people want to learn more about the studio or your bands, where do they go?
So my studio is called Perennial Sound Studio, and it is perennialsoundstudio.com. And it's a pretty informative multi-page Squarespace style website with a form where you can contact me. And then Modern Drugs and Elsinore are both on Instagram and Facebook. And then all of our music is on Spotify and Apple Music and every other streaming platform. And both bands have tons of music videos. So yeah, please check it out.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan, so much for
thank
sharing your
you.
talents with us and just being a part of this podcast. So, and thank you for joining us today and kind of sharing all of that.
Thank you so much for having me. Congrats on the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you. And in just a moment, we're going to be back introducing our guest for the day. Carly, who is our guest for the day?
Oh, we are so excited. We have the Laura Bleill from champaign-urbana.com joining us.
All right. We'll be with that in just a second.
All right, we are back and super excited to have our first official guest, Laura Bleill, the mom and chief of champaign-urbana.com. Welcome, Laura.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm so excited to be here with you all, Carly and Terry. When you told me that I was going to be the first official guest, I was extremely honored. So I'm hoping I can live up to the hype.
I have no doubt that you will, Laura.
Yes, when we were talking about and building our guest list, we're like, well, clearly we have to have Laura.
Yeah, we have some of those musts that we have scheduled out. So, but we thought, we work with you so often and have so many conversations that it would probably be easiest on the two of us as well in terms of hosting a guest. So,
and we get so many questions in our own work about champaign-urbana.com, or we're making referrals to champaign-urbana.com. So we thought this would be perfect. So
yeah.
Well, it's been a labor of love, but it's also amazing to work with you all, and I think that this is a great addition to our community, and I'm excited to hear from your other guests in the future. So
Just not you.
Yeah,
You
just
don't
not me. I don't listen to myself ever. So I already warned these guys, like, don't be mad if I tell you that I never listen to the sound of my own voice. It's not you, it's me.
I get that.
Me.
So, okay, speaking of Champaign Moms, maybe you can tell us a little bit about, how this got started and what drove you to create this resource, which is just so huge in this community and so valuable for so many people.
Well, champaign-urbana.com, as I said before, has kind of been a labor of love, but originally it was came out of my desire to really want to provide people who at that time were parents who would say to us, well, or I'd hear this constantly, this is such a great place to live, but there's nothing to do here. Or it's a great place to raise a family, but there's nothing to do here. And I was just like, well, if you're bored, then you're boring. And so I decided, well, that's probably not a very good answer to people. And I don't know why I was giving that answer to people. I wasn't. It was just kind of, what I thought in my head. But then I thought in my head, there must be a way to collate and to bring together so many disparate pieces of information that can help people really navigate their life here. And where that came from was, frankly, my background. So I came out of local news. The original reason why I moved to this community was to work at the News Gazette. So I moved here for that. And then I moved away, and then I came back. And when I came back, I was sort of searching for what my next career move was going to be. And originally, I had started a blog. And I say it that way because in those days, and this was like 2003, 2004, a blog was like a 4-letter word for a journalist, right? So you weren't supposed to do that if you were a journalist. It was considered beneath you. So anyway, I started that. It was kind of semi-anonymous. Anyway, long story short, I started just writing about what I loved about living here. I wanted to really love where I lived. And so Chambana Moms was definitely an outgrowth of that.
That's awesome. And it's just boomed into this big creation. So tell us a little bit about what people use Chambana Moms for.
Sure. So we are a digital magazine that provides information and resources for things to do, places to go, places to eat, road trips, day trips. So you want to get out of town, great. If you want to stay in town, great. We've got resources for that. We talk a lot about local health care. That's a really difficult system to navigate, especially for people who are just moving here. We talk about everything from, local sports to, arts and culture, everything in between, and really with a lens of being family friendly. The name is Chambana Moms, but I'm very open with the fact that the name was a gimmick. And there's really no content on our site that is genderized or anything like that. It's a community resource that gives people information the ways that they want information.
And oftentimes for new residents, it's where people first find information about the community. So whether they're finding a list of a trail, which is always very popular, we get that a lot. And one of the funniest things that people always ask me is it okay if I'm not a parent or a mom and I like Chambana Moms and I follow and I comment? I'm like, yes, the team loves that.
Well, yes. And that used to be, one of my favorite things that people would say is, I'm not a parent and I follow Chambana Moms. And I would just laugh because, that was kind of the whole idea. But at that time when we created it, that was big in the day and age of what were derisively called mommy blogs. Although mommy blogs at that point were really more like people who are writing long form essays or recipes or other things like that. And, we did a little bit of that, but really our whole focus was hyper local. And that was the goal and 40% of our readers, according to Google Analytics, are men. So we know that there is certainly many people out there who are not moms, so to speak, whether they're women or men or whatever they identify as, that are reading our website. And that was really the goal all along.
Well, you've talked a little bit about when you started and sort of what the trends were at the time. How has the site sort of changed over the years?
Well, it has evolved. So, in the beginning, of course, we were just sort of like throwing something up. We had an idea, we didn't really even think of it as a business at that time. We are a business. My favorite thing is when people ask us how we make money, because I'm like, well, we must be doing something right if you don't notice it. But I used to call it my ultimate community service project. And that was actually, I probably should still call it that. But really, we just threw our heart and souls in putting together, as I said, information the way people wanted it. I came out of newspapers, and newspapers were of course, being disrupted at that time and have been being disrupted for a long time, but really through digital platforms. But my point was, it's not just about putting a newspaper on the internet. It's about how we scope and change the information that we're offering to people in ways that they want to consume it. And so we put, one of the foundations of the site was always our calendar, although in the beginning it was very unsophisticated, and it didn't even, create traffic to our own website. It was on Google, and, we did write a lot more opinion pieces. We had people who wrote series about pregnancy, and people wrote about adoption and infertility, and at the time that was great, but now we've really gotten away from that, and we really focus on, if it's not local, we're not writing it.
Yeah, you guys do a lot of great content, and it's always nice to see the perspective from which you all write that, because you all have something behind it when you're writing these stories. I'm just curious, what are some of the unique questions or things that have come out of doing Chambana Moms? Like, what are the questions that have surprised you along the way?
Well, one of the things is that so I get this a lot too, is that, the website is the heart of and soul of everything that we do. But there's a lot of people who only interact with us on social media. And to me, our social media platforms are almost a different, side of the business in terms of the communities there and who's there. I mean, it's definitely more homogenous on our Facebook page, although there certainly are people of all ages and stages and genders there as well, but not nearly as many on the website. But to answer your question, some of the most surprising questions we get, I think a lot of them are we get so many. Honestly, some of it is painstaking and heart-wrenching, and I am often surprised by how. And I don't know why it's surprising. It's really sad that people turn to us to ask really, really personal questions. And, I always say that I'm the secret keeper of Champaign-Urbana, because I know a lot of things about a lot of people, but of course, honestly, I forget like 10 minutes after they send it. But because, I don't have time or energy to hold on to these things. But really, it's people, in some of their most distressed times. I'm getting a divorce. I'm in a custody battle. My child's having a mental health crisis. I'm having a mental health crisis. My stepdaughter is having a mental, all these different things that relate to families. I think we are oftentimes the place that people turn because they trust our readers, they trust our community. And I think that that's really the at least on social, we have developed a really great sense of, you can post something here and you will get really high quality answers, and not a lot of people being jerks or insensitive.
Yeah, I would say that's one of my favorite things about your online community, is just how supportive everybody is. And you get a lot of I think you call them reader questions, right? And then you post them to Facebook, and the amount of genuine care that other people show in answering those questions, making recommendations, but also just offering help, and just showing that how relatable the community is, how other people are going through stuff. It is really gut-wrenching to read some of them, but it's also just incredibly heartwarming to see the response that people give, and just knowing that there's so many people in this community who care and legitimately want to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've had so many stories of people finding each other through the website, through the social, meeting each other at our events and becoming lifelong friends, or, so that community of support. People say, oh, you can't meet your friends online. It's like, well, I beg to differ.
I think it's such a testament to what this community is, right? We're supportive, we're caring, we're here for each other, and it's visible every single day on your guys' Facebook page and your Instagram account and on your website. And I think, the community that you all have created, not just for families, but for people in general, is really something. And it is, as Carly said, heartwarming. There's so many negative things that you could be seeing out there. So when you see this community that is just wrapping their arms around each other to make sure that they get through something is really important, because we've all been there, right? We've all had these moments in our lives where we've been dealing with something and we don't know who to turn to, and we don't know what people are going to think of it. So knowing that there's not shame or embarrassment, like to have those thoughts and feelings, it's really quite amazing what you guys have done.
Well, thank you. And I think that that's a big part of why people trust us. And I don't take that for granted.
Yeah. So what happens next?
What happens next? So I just got this question the other day. Actually, I was approached by a business school professor at Geese to do a case study on Chambana Moms. And so the students had to read, it was sort of the history of the website and kind of some of the twists and turns. Honestly, getting through a pandemic on a website that focuses on events and community resources was a huge achievement that I'd love to give myself a gold star for. That was a humongous challenge. We really it really tested I reflected on this in the business case a little bit, but it really our newsroom chops came together. I mean, I was pushing out stuff daily as if we were our own newsroom at the beginning of the pandemic, and just all through it trying to keep up with everything that was happening, and then also just seeing our revenues practically go to zero. So getting through that was a huge achievement. We had started a website, a sister website before the pandemic, but it's really not a great idea to start a website for active seniors and then they can't go anywhere for a year and a half. So we've actually donated champaign-urbana to a local nonprofit that serves that constituency in our community, and they are sort of remaking it into their own, which I think is a good thing. But honestly, what's next is anybody's game. I think, I've always kept my mind open, but I'm also just we're constantly trying to build back, believe it or not, a lot of what happened pre-pandemic. Just today, my stats guru, so shout out to Amy Cunningham, was on the site telling us, or this whole week, about how we have finally now eclipsed, 2019 Halloween stats or things like that. So, I think building things back up and really sort of getting back to that point has been, not an easy thing, but not something that, we want to talk about all the time. So what's next? That's anyone's game. I'm open to suggestions. I mean, I often get those. I do know somebody owns champaign-pets.com, but I actually own lots of domain names, so you never know.
champaign-pets.com.
Yeah.
That could be kind of fun.
That could be fun. And you've mentioned it a few times, the team, and the fact that you are a small business. So how many people are on the champaign-moms.com team?
So we just actually added another person, and so I have to count, but there's 7, I believe, in addition to me, and I might get this wrong, and I'm sorry, you all, but basically that includes, the team is incredibly important to me. Those of you listening, many of you will know that I have another hat. I have a full-time job at the University of Illinois Research Park, and I'm very passionate about. And so what has allowed me to do what I do for the university in that sense is that I have this amazing group of people that we rely on every day. And so that includes a content strategist, a managing editor, a business manager, social media strategist. We have an events manager. We do a lot of events offline as well, which has been a really important part of our community building activities. We have a calendar editor, and I know I'm missing somebody right now, but that has been a really important part of what we do. Most of them work, this whole idea of work from home. Well, our team has always been distributed and working from home. Of course, we do get together at various different places. Sometimes you'll see that on our Instagram as to where we're having our team meetings.
I love running into the champaign-moms.com team in your meetings.
Yeah. So, we do get together and, but I mean, it's a really great high performing team. And you know what? They love this community, and that's what the secret sauce is that they want what's best for this community just as much as my husband and I do, who own the business. So.
Absolutely. And you have had a few things go, quote unquote, viral.
Oh, dear. Yes.
It's always funny, the reach of champaign-moms.com, right? Like, especially when you had a few posts go viral, and just the amount of eyes that were on some posts. And
yeah, social media is a funny thing. You post something and you think, oh, yeah, that's cute. And then it just keeps going and going and going. And it's like my aunt in California seeing it or whatever. That's maybe a bad example. But we do spend a lot of time on social media in the sense that we really believe that, it gives us, again, those chances to relate to one another. But sometimes when we relate to each other, some people outside the community find interest in that too. So, yes, I don't know, I'm trying to think of some specific examples, but maybe you had some on your mind, Carly.
No, I just remember a few posts, I think especially during the pandemic, that were super relatable for families and just general community members. And every time I went back, the amount of shares was doubling and then tripling, and it was just really amazing.
We had a couple over the summer that were like 15 million people saw. It was just bonkers. So
Amazing.
yeah. It just strikes lightning in a bottle. You never know what that's going to be like. But ultimately, at the end of the day, our focus is really our community, the people in this community, the our partners. So I'd really be remiss if I didn't mention all the partners and organizations, and that's nonprofits, for-profits, healthcare, financial services, local mom and pop retailers, attractions, et cetera, that partner with us. We're very lucky to have some partners who literally been with us, for the last. We're about to turn 14 this month. So, no, sorry, 13. 13, yeah, 13. And so, we have some partners who've been with us a good decade or so, and that's pretty amazing.
It is. So, talking about our community, maybe we should dive into our questions for Laura. So, we like to ask, or you're our first guest, but we asked each other last week some questions about the community and sort of your general thoughts. So, we're gonna ask you your 3 questions now. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
I think.
I think you're going to nail it, Laura.
Okay.
It's going to be
I'm
fine.
a little nervous now.
No, don't be nervous. First off, what is it that you love about living here?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's funny. So I mentioned earlier that I went to talk to this class at Geese, and one of the questions they asked me was about my work-life balance. And Carly is laughing. But what I said was, in response, I think is a really testament to why I love this place, is I said, well, if I didn't live here, there's no way I could ever do what I do. And, I'm not sitting on a train for an hour as many of my, family members had in past lives, or people in the community where I grew up. So being the fact that I can get from my office to my kids' schools to my Chambana Moms team meetings within like a matter of minutes is honestly, that's what I love about living here, is just not that it's just easy, but that I think we just value sort of this sense of proximity that, I'm not interested in living in a place where I have to drive an hour to get to anything. That's just, I've been there, done that, never doing it again. I love the fact that everything is at our fingertips within minutes, whether that's, biking, driving, whatever it might be. And honestly, I just think that enhances our quality of life so much.
Agreed.
Agreed. Yep.
Yeah.
I think that was very similar to my answer too, is the amount that we can pack in a day here is very valuable, and something that's the reasons we live here, because we can do all of the things in a very short time period.
Well, and in the early days of Chambana Moms, I would go literally personally be taking my children to all these things, and my parents would come and visit. In fact, they're property owners in Champaign County, and so they would come and visit, and they would a lot, obviously, and they're in the suburbs of Chicago, and they would constantly be telling their friends about how much we did and how great it is, and they would say, like, you can't do this in Chicago. Like, you can't go to 4 things, and in total it costs like, less than $20 a person to go to 4 different things in a day. A fall weekend is a perfect example. So just going from one thing to the next, and they love it here, and their friends would kind of look at them like they were, upside down and sideways. But hey, come visit and check it out, see for yourself.
Yes.
So that being said, what do you like to do on the weekends?
What do I like to do on the week? Honestly, it's changed over the years, right? Because as you're at Terri, as you know this, as life changes from little kids, tiny kids, to little kids, to big
kids
little
that don't want to be around you anymore.
Right, exactly. So I have some very athletic kids. So frankly, my last 6 months of my life have been dominated by softball. So hats off to all the sports parents out there. But if it was up to me, I love to eat. I love to go to arts events. I love to, go to theater or sports or whatever. And honestly, I can literally walk to all of those things if I really wanted to. So, that's kind of where you'll find me, is at any one of those kinds of things on the weekends. So going outdoors too. I know Carly doesn't like to go outdoors, but I do. I'm not really a big camper, Terri, but I love to go on the hikes. especially we have so many beautiful places to go that are within, an easy, like I said, less than an hour
Yep.
to, and obviously we can go a little bit more than that for some special hikes, but so yeah, all the things. I don't know. Every weekend is different, and someday maybe I'll actually be able to make more of my own choices instead of having to follow what they're wanting to do. So
It's going to happen sooner than later, Laura.
thank you for the
And
concern.
And speaking of eating, you mentioned that that's one of your, and you're a foodie. So what is your favorite area restaurant?
Oh my gosh, that is like
The hardest question.
it is the hardest question. I guess I would have to say if I'm walking with my feet, I probably end up the most at Sunsinger by far. Some of that's proximity, some of that is, we were very happy with their service during the pandemic and sitting outside and things like that. Also, they just have I have a family that doesn't really agree on very much. So like, being able to find something for everyone there and it all being really, really good is something. But, I guess if I was really honest, probably the most visited quote unquote restaurant in my family is probably Sydney Dairy Barn.
Mm. There we go.
There we go.
Yep.
So
Carly loves her Sydney Dairy Barn.
I do.
oh my gosh, you and my husband we can go together. So, but I could literally sit here and talk about this for hours. I don't really have favorite restaurants. I have favorite dishes. Like
Yes.
I'm going to eat this at this place, or like if I was to compile my favorite, like a progressive or something, like, oh yeah, I could totally do that.
So you're a creature of habit. You kind of eat the same thing at the same restaurant.
Unfortunately,
Yeah, I'm the
yes.
same way.
It's really bad.
Yeah. I know what I like.
I know.
We have too many good options.
Yeah. Well, when you have so many choices in terms of restaurants, you do get to like those dishes because you get to experience something different at so many different places here. So it is kind of nice to have that little moment of comfort.
Definitely. And it's funny though, because I'm trying to remember where I was. I was at one place that took this dish off the menu, and then I went to this other place and they had a very similar version of what that dish was. And I was like, I wonder if this is like the chef that used to be over there that now is over here. People move around, but yeah. There's definitely a lot of places to eat. We don't get bored. But yeah, I also just think that we are lucky to have so many different ethnic restaurants here. So, if I had my choice, I would literally eat at Siam Terrace every single day. That's probably one, but I have to pick and choose like who I go to some of these places with because of some of the,
Yep.
other factors. Yes.
Yep. Crispy pad thai at Siam Terrace. One of my favorite dishes in town.
Yeah.
Yep.
A Terry favorite for sure.
Yep. Well, Laura, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for being our first guest and giving us the history of Chambana Moms and everything that you do. Hat tip to you and your team and everything that you guys do every single day. You make this community look really good, and you make everybody feel very welcome and a part of it. So we really appreciate all that you guys do.
Well, thank you very much. Sometimes it's easy to get kind of stuck in our own worlds and kind of forget that the impact that it makes. And I try to, make sure my team sees all of those things like that, because I think really they deserve a lot of that credit. And I'll be sure to share that with them too.
Shout out Team Chambana Moms.
Absolutely. All day, every day. So thank you, Laura.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right. Well, we'll be back in just a second talking about what's coming up this weekend.
All right. It is November 3rd. So, Terry, what is coming up this weekend?
Got a lot happening over this next weekend in a couple of days. So first one is actually a little bit kind of unique and different. It's outside of town at Gordyville. They are having their International Pro Rodeo Finals this weekend, November 4th through 6th. So I've actually never been to the rodeo, but I'm told that it's a fantastic time there out at Gordyville. And they specifically said to make sure you see the miniature bucking bulls, which
Miniature bucking bulls.
Yes,
Okay.
that was hard to say, but I pulled it off, and I think it would be kind of cool to go see. So that's happening this weekend. So pretty exciting to have something like the rodeo in town.
Yeah, that's very cool and completely different something else that's happening is coming back to Parkland,
Yes.
which we're all very excited about, is Dark Side of the Moon at the Planetarium. So that's coming back on November 4th at 9 p.m. The full dome video set to the classic Pink Floyd album, of course. And that is coming back monthly, right? After some years away.
Every month. It's been gone from the planetarium for quite some time, but it was always a very popular thing when they did it. And post-pandemic, they're like, let's do it.
Awesome.
Bring it back.
Cool. And I've been before, and it's incredible. So you should definitely check it out. Also coming up this weekend is the kickoff for Illini women's basketball. So I mentioned I went to the men's basketball game versus Quincy, and now the women are kicking off versus Quincy too. So that's at 7 p.m. This is the first year under the new coach, Shauna Green. And then following the women's basketball game coming up on Monday will be men's basketball regular season, which is going to be very tough for me because they're playing EIU, which is my alma mater. And so I think I'm going to have to wear my EIU sweatshirt and then maybe my Illini jacket. So still figuring that out.
Okay. Well, you'll let me know how you work that little thing out with you. Also coming up this weekend, this one's really neat. This is at Spurlock Museum on Saturday. During the day, they're doing a Powwow 101 out there. So they're going to have the Beziki Culture and Dance Company out there doing some demonstrations of powwow dances. Spurlock is actually going to be launching a new interactive exhibit in the spring of 2023. So this is sort of a preview of what to expect there. So Spurlock is on the campus of the University of Illinois. If you have not been, it's a great World Heritage Museum. They do lots of programming, and this Powwow 101 is just a great example of the types of things that they do out there. And then the last one that we have coming up that we wanted to talk about is also kind of a testament to like the makers that we have in town. And I love that this happens. So this is the CUDO, the Champaign-Urbana Design Organization Board Game Playtest Convention. It is happening on November 5th from 1 to 5 p.m. at Broadway Food Hall. So CUDO hosted a design competition for people to create some games. And so this is actually where the community gets invited out to test those games and to provide feedback to these game makers so that they can go back and make changes to it. So it's a really kind of cool way to see, you know, the types of creations that are coming out of these people's minds and, you know, play with them and, you know, kind of help them out and tweak what they need to do. So I love this event. I think it is very indicative of this community.
Absolutely. And if you love board games, it's a really cool opportunity to get in on the ground level of a brand new game developed here by local creatives.
Yep. And I love a good board game.
I do too.
I'm a little competitive though, so
yes, you are.
I am.
As am I, but
people don't like to play games with me. So that's what we have coming up. We thought maybe we'd talk about our next fun fact.
Sure.
I really like this one. So one of Champaign County's many famous inventors is Charles A. Getz, a graduate student in chemistry at the University of Illinois. What is Charles Getz known for inventing?
All right, here's the options. First, scratch and sniff stickers. Second, the green slime used by Nickelodeon. Or 3, whipped cream in a can.
I kind of hope it's the green slime by Nickelodeon because I loved that show. You can't do that on television. I watched that as a kid just growing up. It was one of my favorites. And what was the game? Double Dare?
Uh-huh.
Didn't they use the green slime on there?
Yes, I think they did, yeah.
That was a big one. So, well, we'll tell you the answer next time.
Yes, and coming up on our next episode, our next full episode, our next guest will be Xander Hazel, who is the director of the Champaign Center Partnership, and I believe we're going to talk about upcoming holiday things.
That's right, the big parade of lights and, of course, shopping local. So it's hard to believe it's that time, but we're going to be talking about it.
All right.
All right. Well, Carly, this was great. I'm so excited that we got to do this morning, and we had some great guests with Ryan and Laura. So we will be back next week talking about just some upcoming events. So stay tuned for that. We're going to do that every other week. And then in 2 weeks, we'll be here with Xander.
Awesome. Cheers, Terry.
Have a great week, Carly. We'd like to thank Perennial Sound Studio for our music and 5 Foot Productions for assisting with production.